What's going on, everybody? It's been a little while since I've put out some videos, so today I'm going to go through a shop update on everything that's going on around here, and then we'll start getting into some more videos on each thing individually, in separate videos, of course. But let me get you turned around. We'll start with the stuff that's in here in the shop, and then we'll move outside and go over what's sitting out there. Alright, so we'll start with this. This is a 98 Jeep Wrangler TJ that we've had for a few months now. Picked it up cheap because of a couple of things. It needed some engine work. The guy that we got this from had overheated it pretty bad because he blew the radiator out and then still drove it to and from work for a little while until it stopped running. And then he took it to a shop and had them change the radiator. You can see it's fairly new. And then just gave up on it. Quit driving it because it wouldn't run. So I pulled it apart. And you can see it's got some pretty bad scoring in the cylinder walls. And the cylinder head here, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see, but even without a straight edge, when you set this thing with the light behind it, you can tell it's warped pretty bad. So I'm not even going to mess with this motor. And it's also a junkyard motor, so it's not original to this Jeep. But I'm just going to go ahead and swap it out for one that's running and working properly. And I'll reseal that one and make it nice before I throw it in here. But on top of that, been doing some frame repair. I've got the center sections done on both sides. I still got to do the rear sections, but basically, if you have a TJ these days that's under $8,000, it seems like they're gonna have these issues. So that's what I'm working through on this, getting it roadworthy again. Pee-wee over here, affectionately named Pee-wee because it is so much smaller than my big one that I have outside, Meatball. It's a 2001 Cherokee, and it needed a motor in it because I let my brother borrow it, and it's either he did something or just while he had it, the motor went bad, cracked the block internally. So while I was putting a new engine in, I decided to go ahead and do a 5-speed swap. You can see that in here. It's in progress still. Still working on that. Obviously there's a lot of work to do, but I've got that in. I've got the pedals in. I just gotta pull that clip up and get it. I gotta do a lot of the buttoning up is where I'm at on this thing. I gotta do exhaust, drive shafts. I gotta finish plugging in everything on this half of the engine. I gotta put the radiator, condenser, and core support and everything back in here. Starter back in. It's slowly coming back together. It's been kind of quick. I've been busy at work a lot, so I haven't worked on this much, but it's been going fairly quickly, all things considered. Changing an engine, changing the transmission from automatic to manual, and then I changed from a 231 to a 242 transfer case because I really wanted one in this one. So it's going to be a kind of a daily run around. But let's go ahead and go outside and we'll start talking through everything that's out there. Just keep on doing this quick update. Alright, kicking us off for outside, we have Old Reliable here. This is my 2003 Ram 2500 with the 5.9 Cummins in it. Just the standard, not the high output, 2-wheel drive, single cab long bed. This truck has 386,000 miles on it, and it is just an absolute champion. Just turnkey and go, always hauling. And we got my buddy's trailer over here. We just went and picked up a large metal crate from a local company that was getting rid of it here recently. Try to stand out of the wind. I picked up a big metal crate from a local company that was getting rid of one, and we've been tearing it down, and this is what's left over. Still have the roof and a side piece and the base of it, but this thing was just about as tall as semi-trucks going down the road and stuff, which is the tallest thing that has ever been hooked up to this truck to my knowledge, at least in my ownership for sure. And this thing just goes, man. It's been really, really good. The body is rusty because it is an old 3rd-gen Dodge, but the frame underneath it, there's diesel hanging out under there. You can see the frame underneath it is impeccable. It's in very, very, very good shape. It's just the body rotting away around it. Long term, I'd like to do a body swap on this truck with an old school pickup, like from the 50s or 60s. I think that'd be really, really cool. But that is way off in the future. That's not going to be anytime soon, because I definitely need at least a 2-post lift to get that done, since I'll be lifting and setting the body down a bunch, or at minimum a forklift of some sort. But I see myself getting a lift before a forklift that I'd feel comfortable doing that with. All right, let's swing around to the parking lot here. This here is our 1976 Jeep J10 Honcho. It is the short bed, since it's a Honcho, of course. If you didn't know that, Honchos were only available in the short beds. It's got the 360, it's got a turbo 400 trans, and it's got the quad-drive all-wheel drive system. And this thing, it sits when it gets cold out. We don't drive this thing in the cold. It doesn't have heat. The wipers don't work. It needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of love. It's got really cool patina on it in pictures and stuff, but the bed is pretty well shot. This side's not so bad on the side here. I've definitely seen way worse, but on the back it's getting real bad. It's bad on both sides, and you can see the front. It's just totally rotting away. So I'd like to go out west and pick a new bed for this truck up somewhere and bring it home before we do the paint, because I'm gonna totally restore this thing. It had the Levi's interior. And you see we've got a bunch of stuff stored in here from when we were showing this off for pictures at our wedding. So we're gonna fully restore this truck over time. I know it's not gonna be quick, but it's definitely gonna be worth it. These things are so hard to find, and they're really, really cool. And then when I do get the new bed for it, I think I'm gonna take these bed skins and make them into wall art of some sort. But we'll see where I'm at when that happens. See, this is a good friend of mine's, 91 or 2, I think. It's a 2-door S10 Blazer. And we are actually going to be solid axle swapping this with some XJ axles. We have the axles inside, and we're going to do 456 gears, lockers front and rear, long arms in the front. We're going to keep it leaf sprung in the rear for now, just to kind of help simplify getting it set up for the first iteration. Start doing some testing and seeing what we like, what we don't like, what works and what doesn't. This is going to be my first solid axle swap that I'm going to be doing, so I'm pretty excited to dig into this. But we're going to get the axles set up and ready to go before we pull this into the shop and take up shop space. All right, moving on. This is actually the newest one here, for me anyways. I just picked this up. It is a 93 Nissan Pathfinder. It is 4-wheel drive with the 5-speed manual, and it basically is rust-free. There's a couple of little things here and there, but especially the frame where these things like to go underneath the mud, it is nice and solid. This is going to be a fun little project. I'm going to be doing a lot of work on this here soon, and I'm going to do a lot of fabrication and like designing brackets and things, because I know the aftermarket for these is really not very big, which is crazy because these cars are fairly reliable. The engines are really good in them, and the manuals are in a lot of them, so you don't have to worry about transmission issues. The problem with them, like all the hard-body pickups that are shared on the same platform here, is they just rot away. They all, especially up north here, just didn't survive in the salt. I have the grill, front bumper, and the factory front brush guard in the trunk. It's just all taken apart right now because it needs a radiator done, and the last guy had already done all this. I bought it exactly how it sits here. It currently runs and drives. I just can't take it on the road because these tires are not round anymore. They are very, very dry rotted. But I've got some tires for it, and I'm going to put a lift on this thing basically for free with the stuff I have around here. But I've got the tires sitting in this Jeep here. So I've got some nice mud tires for it. I'm just going to take them off of these stock Jeep wheels, and I'm going to put them onto some, probably some chrome 16s, some bullet hole style wheels. I think that'd look really good on this era of SUV. It would match the time. But if I don't do that, I'm just gonna get some black steelies, but we'll see how that's gonna go. That'll have its own videos coming here pretty soon. But this guy right here is a 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokee that I'm fixing up for a good buddy of mine. He's been looking for a Grand Cherokee for a little while, and as soon as he started looking for them, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, the prices on these just absolutely skyrocketed. So I was able to pick this one up for pretty cheap because it needs a motor. The #1 piston actually went through the oil pan. So it's going to be interesting to tear this one apart and look and see how that happened, because these are pretty reliable, being that this one's a 4-liter, and the guy that I got it from had, I think he said it was either 13 or 15 years of receipts and maintenance of records and stuff on this. And when the car blew up, they towed it to his shop, and he bought it from the owners and then decided he wasn't going to do anything with it. So that's why I got it. But overall, it's really, really clean and nice. A lot of work's been done to it. It just needs a driver's seat, and it's been smoked in, but my buddy doesn't care about that. He can get the smell out. He can change the headliner, or clean the headliner, change the seat out. And I mean, this is just not attached at all, which is crazy. The brackets are broken, but big thing with these Jeeps also is rust, and this one is very, very nice. It is well worth fixing up. Even the skid plate back here for the gas tank is in incredibly good shape, and that's just hard to find on these WJs, especially as old as they are now. It's got those taillight covers. It's tinted already. It's got this pretty nice looking little brush guard on it. So I'm going to get the motor changed and get this thing running and driving good. We're going to throw some 2-inch puck lift on it that are coming off one of my other WJs. And then he's got some JK Rubicon wheels that he's going to throw on here. And it's going to be really nice. Just a good little Jeep. All right. Over here, we got another old reliable, man. This is Meatball. Is my 2000 Jeep Cherokee. I've had this thing for close to 6 or 7 years now. It's been a long time that I've been driving this thing, and there is so much done to this that we'd have to have a whole separate video to go through every single little thing. But it's on a 4.5-inch lift. It's 3-link long arm. I'm on 35 by 1450s with Method 15 by 10s. Built my own steering, and it's re-geared, and got big brakes, disc brakes in the rear. But this thing is just a workhorse. It does everything I ask it to. Play with this thing all the time. Just put it into situations it really shouldn't, any car shouldn't go into. It's just awesome. I'll never get rid of this. I bought it from the original owner. I just redid the gears in the front end because I blew them out on a trail probably 6 months ago now, and I've hit my break-in miles and everything after I got it all re-geared. So I got to change the fluid up front, and then I got to start doing some rust repair, keep this thing nice. I'm going to cut the rockers out. You can see this one's already been bashed in a bunch. That's why it's got holes, but I'm going to cut them out. I have some square tube steel that I'm going to be putting in there, welding in for some rock sliders. I just need to get some frame stiffeners so I can tie them into those, but that's what's next up on this. That and a slip yoke eliminator, so I can use this stock rear drive shaft in the manual swap one that's on the inside. I know the manual transmission's got a longer drive shaft in the rear, but the longer drive shaft off the 242 actually does not fit. I have the manual rear drive shaft in there, but it's too long. So I'm going to get this one out of the automatic when I do the SYE, which should be here in a week or two. Hopefully I'm going to be tackling that, but that's where this is at. Just going and going. Right over here, we've got my 2015 Ram 1500 as my daily driver. If I have to take long road trips and stuff, or if I just don't feel like dealing with any of the little things that project cars can bring, this is the one that I drive. I've had this thing since it was a year old with 15,000 miles, and now I just rolled over 126,000, and I'm going to keep this thing forever too. It's really hard to have a nice working vehicle with no issues. especially as electronics are starting to get more and more complicated, that's actually been taken care of and looked after. Because people just don't take care of their cars anymore. It's unbelievable. But the starter just went out on me on this thing. I drove it to go pick up my Husky from the groomer and loaded up in the parking lot, turned the key, and just nothing. So I gotta change the starter on this here. It should be in the mail tomorrow, so I can get that changed out. I ordered a Mopar OEM starter because there's the OEM Mopar starter was cheaper than the AutoZone off-the-shelf starter, because the 5.7 Hemis use the same starter on all the pickups, the Chargers, the Jeeps, and it's from like 2003 to 2019. It's all the same starter, which is crazy, but that made the Mopar one really cheap, which is really good. I only want to use good quality parts on this thing since I'm keeping it long term. And these Mopars can get really, really picky if you start using stuff that they don't like. But I've got a 3-inch lift in the front and a 1-inch level in the rear, so that it sits fairly flat. I've got 20 by 12s with 35s on it. They're Aturos. They're hybrid terrain. I've been pretty happy with them. I had mud terrains on it before, and I think the hybrid terrain is just better for what I use this truck for. But yeah, once I get that starter changed, this thing is just good to go. It's just always ready to go wherever I need it. This here is my trailer. I guess I'll do a little thing on it because it is also kind of a project. I picked it up for 800 bucks and put some tires on it and painted the deck. And I've just been using this thing. Recently, I put a battery and a winch on here. This is on here pretty temporary. This is not how I plan to run it full time, but I'm gonna build out a toolbox of some sort right here and change out where the jack lands, and I got some things I'm gonna change up in the front to make it a little more user friendly, and so I can keep straps and tools and things in the trailer. And then I actually got a small solar panel from Amazon so that I can always constantly be trickle charging this battery. So it's always topped up for the winch. That way I don't have to charge it up in the house and bring it back out here or anything. But I don't have to run it off the 7-pin to hopefully charge it and mess with wiring all that up. So I'm just going to slap a solar panel on the toolbox that I build. I think it'll be good to go. And I used Herculiner paint on this. And when I painted it, I did not even spray the dirt off of the old stuff. So there's some of the blue starting to come back through from when it was blue once upon a time, and some other, there's red, and there's all sorts of colors on this thing. But the beauty of using the spray paint Herculiner, I can just come over here and spray back over the top of it, and that's fixed. Craigslist rebuilt. So yeah, this has been a good trailer for me. Gotta figure out a couple more lights and things that I want to do with it, but overall, this thing's incredible. I guess let's walk up the hill over here for the next one so you can really get this thing in view. Here we go. This is my 1977, I think it is, either 76 or 77, International COE. It is a 1610B, which is a really, really rare truck to find. These older Internationals, most of them were the Lodestar 1600s with the regular cab with the hood sticking out over the front of it. The cab overs are extra rare, but these 1610Bs I think seem to be the hardest ones to find, or at least they're the ones that I see the least of in the International COEs. It has the 392 in it. It's a 5-speed manual with a 2-speed, the split rear end, and it runs really good. And I've just been working through brakes because every old International in the world that's under $3,000 needs brakes. And I've also got to figure out the clutch master cylinder. I've touched on those a little bit on videos I've been making for this truck. But now that it's starting to warm up a little bit, especially towards the end of this week and hopefully in the next month, I can actually get out here and start working on this thing more, because there is no way I'm getting this into the shop without it running and driving and stopping. Especially as hilly as it is around here, that's really, really important that I have good brakes on this thing before I start trying to roll it around. But I'm really excited to get this one going. It shouldn't cost all that much more before it's running and driving, and then I can rebuild the bed, because all the wood in the bed is all rotten out. Let's see if I can get a shot of that real quick. See, all the wood is all rotten out in there, but it's got the PTO for the dump bed, so that's going to be really nice. I want to take the gravel driveway, and I need to do another layer and spray for weed killers and stuff, because it's pretty thin over the past couple of years. I don't know. I don't think this has been redone since the gravel was poured back in 2018. So it needs another layer. It needs a lot of weed killer and stuff for sure. And I want to bring it out. You can see I've been parking over here. So I want to bring it out just to where my truck is here, so that my trailer is on the gravel. But for now, I may have to order in a load before it starts getting too bad. But that's where the International's at. Next up, we've got the Beerbulance. This thing is the most bang for the buck fun car that I have ever had, probably. I bought this Jeep for $280. I spent $100 on a set of 4 of the JK Rubicon wheels and $100 on a set of used 35 MTRs. And I just beat on this thing. I mean, we fire this thing up, load it onto the trailer, take it out to the off-road park, and it is just hammer down the whole day, and it has been nothing but good. Recently, I parted out a Jeep that had a bunch of really good parts on it, and since I made my money back on the Jeep, I started giving this thing some cheap love. Like, I did a tank tuck here recently with an aftermarket skid plate that came off of that other Jeep, and that's just been phenomenal to have that. And I've got a Rough Country 4-inch long arm lift that's going to go on it, because right now it's just on 2-inch pucks with the 35s, and it rubs kind of a lot, as you could imagine. But it's just trimmed out really far, and you can see where we've been bashing it in and smashing the tires up in here and everything. So getting the 4-inch long arm lift on it's going to be really nice, and I can push the axle forward. And I don't want to use the Rough Country long arms on my nice WJ because it's Rough Country, and even with, I think the parts Jeep had maybe 1,000 miles max on that other lift kit. The bushings are already starting to show their age, and one of the shocks is really weak. And for this, that doesn't matter because I'm just going to beat on it in the woods. But I want nice parts on my Overland. So moving over to that, this is my 2004 Grand Cherokee Overland. This has been quite a love-hate relationship with this one. I spent a lot of time and a lot of money fixing on this thing, and it's just been so problematic so much of the time. And for the most part, it's been front-end issues with death wobble and loose components, and chasing down, like, even after I've replaced stuff, figuring out that brand new components are bad right out of the box and things of that nature. And the WJs seem to get it a lot worse than the XJs and ZJs and TJs do. So I think it's just because these are a little bit heavier. They just weigh, they're bigger. So I've been chasing down a little bit of that. Overall, it's been pretty good though. I really freaking love this thing, and I've got it to where I've got all the factory options. And so, like, I've got the factory rock sliders, and I actually found some on one of the Facebook groups from a guy Pete that lives way up northwest, because I'm in Kentucky now. He shipped them to me when I lived in Ohio, and he really did me a big favor being willing to work with me on those. I'm so happy that he was able to get these to me. But I've got the 2004 interior in here in really, really good shape. We can come up to the front here. It's in really good shape for some Overland seats. That the wear on the driver's side is the only complaint I have with these. And these are actually out of a one-owner Jeep that I got and parted out because the dude parked it and let it rust when he got a 2015 Overland. But I even got the factory navigation and everything. So I absolutely loved having this Jeep and knowing how special that these Overlands are and building this up. But after, like, I've been chasing, like I said, front end issues quite a bit, and I went to change the knock sensors the middle of last year, and when I pulled the intake manifold off, it broke the bolts into the head. So when I started to try to drill those out and be careful and extract those, it broke the flange off of the cylinder head. So then I started pulling the cylinder heads off, and then when I was using the puller on the pulley, the crank pulley on the front of the engine, it bent and it seemed like it cracked the crankshaft, so I just pulled this thing all the way apart and put all new components in it. Didn't want to risk it because this thing has been really, really well cared for most of its life. And it was really obvious pulling the engine apart, seeing how well all the parts, how good all the parts looked and everything. So it's all rebuilt. It's running, driving. I've got a few hundred miles on it, on rebuilt. I didn't like hone the cylinders or anything because it just did not need it. But hopefully going to be taking this one and Meatball on some trails here in 2 weeks together. So I'm going to be making doing a lot of videoing and recording when we go out there for that. We're going to be leading a trail ride on April 1st. That's going to be for one of our local Jeep clubs, and I'm going to be leading the trails, hopefully teaching people kind of what the trail systems are like, how you should act on the trails, and just get people into the sport a little bit, get people into off-roading a little bit more that just haven't had the opportunity because they haven't done it before. So well, that's where this is at. Over here, we've got my 96 GMC Jimmy. I bought this thing for way cheap back when it was freezing cold outside all the time and snowy. And for whatever reason, every year I get one of these little S10 variant things as just like a beater snow car. But I've got the bumper off of it right now because I'm actually building a winch bumper for it. And I'm going to do a Chevy Blazer front end swap because the GMC has this little kick up on the grill right here, and it makes just a horrible gap on those bumpers when you build them up. And instead of trying to fill that in and making the bumper look weird, I think it would look best to put the Chevy front end on it, and then I can get aftermarket headlights that aren't the diffuser lights on there. I can get them in black to match the rest of this thing. Because it's got a 2-inch lift on it. I've got some 30x9s. Really rolling them big boys. It's already been tinted from somebody else. I've got a cheapy roof rack with some cheapy Amazon lights. I've got some little custom made stickers that my wife made with a little red Bigfoot on there to match the red on the GMC. Tinted the tail lights, put a backup camera in and everything. But overall, it's a solid little unit, and this thing also is just incredibly clean underneath. It blew me away how nice the underside of this thing is for as cheap as it was. I think I paid like $800 for this thing, running and driving. It just needed brakes. Well, brakes and door pins, because every single one of these freaking things needs door pins. But I haven't vacuumed it or nothing. This thing is just a really nice unit. But I want to get that bumper on here and then get this thing going on its way, because I'm ready to move on to that Pathfinder as my flip car project. And then the last thing we got sitting around here on the project list, for now anyways, is the camper, our XJ camper here. It's a camper made out of a 4-wheel drive 2-door XJ. The camper part of it was made before I bought it. So I bought it as a trailer, but it was just bare, empty, and it was on the stock wheels and everything. So I've added the solar panels to it. I put the wheels and tires and a lift on it so that it rides level with my Jeep. Let's see, open this up here. And you gotta be careful with this one because it'll swing up and smack you because of the way that these struts are. But you see, we've got our bed here. We've got the headliner redone. We've got a switch panel, some rudimentary cabinets and things. The batteries are in there. We got a radio and some speakers both here, and I put a couple up top and some lights and things. So I've got a lot of ideas how we're going to be changing this up for this season to start using this more. And I know a lot of people have been asking to see videos on this thing. Every time it shows up in the background of something else, or when I've mentioned it in our previous camping trip videos. So I've got some really good ideas that we're going to be integrating this year. We'll be making videos all along the way because I know people really love to see these things. But this is a quick overview. I'm going to be swapping the air conditioner for a different style. I really don't like this one being the load through the front, like window mount style, and it only lasted probably 5 or 6 months before the shaking around and banging on this thing just did not do it any favors. So I need to get an RV style because they're a little bit better suited for that. I gotta do some looking into how I'm gonna do that. And then the way that the hood has been cut up and grafted onto the front, I really hate. I think it really ruins this as a finished product. So I want to get some XJ fenders and bolt it up so that my body lines and door gaps and everything on the side are the factory. They look good because it would be the factory lines. And then basically use that and bring it out probably to the length that the air conditioner is and cut them and put a header panel on the front of it here so it looks like the front of a Jeep still. And then as a little mini hood, have containers or lids that will open up and have storage up here in the front for all sorts of different things that we don't need to store on the inside. Because when we go on trips and store everything on the inside, we have to pull a whole lot of stuff out and put it all into the Jeep so that we can sleep in there and be comfortable with the two of us. So if you want to see underneath how it's been done, it's some square tube that was run down into the factory frame rails and then welded all the way around. So it's actually really nice and strong. I've never had any issues, and it's been plated in a couple of spots too, so it's not just the one beam going through. And it pulls really, really good down the highway. Even though it's a lot of tongue weight, I'd rather have more tongue weight than less tongue weight, because if it started getting swayy, especially on my Jeep, that'd be a lot harder to control than if it started swaying on a pickup truck. But there you go. There's a shop update of everything that's going on around here, at least for the time being. There's always stuff cycling in and out of here, so I'm going to try to start videoing a whole lot more so you can see a little bit of what's going on in the day-to-day a lot better. But there's an update. So thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned to see a lot of these projects kind of start progressing, because I'm going to start videoing this a lot more. And like and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.